Chad,
Billion Bushel.
it's time to roll, man.
Let's
All
roll.
right. So excited. Everyone's gonna be rolling in and stuff here for the launch of the Billion Bushel Challenge, the biggest day in Continuum Ag history,
Man, it's exciting.
maybe in American history.
American history,
Maybe not. That's a stretch. That's a stretch.
Let's keep that.
Nah, this is really exciting though. Really, just happy that you guys are joining us here. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people rolling in. We had a lot of registered. We got just a little video. Tee things up. We'll be right back.
So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps. Who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then painting from tractor back put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer.
It gets me every time.
It does, right? Hey,
It's awesome.
Mitch and I, both seventh generation farmers from Iowa, but can't get further apart from each other as far as sides of the state, right? Eastern Iowa, Western Iowa, but that does hit home.
Hits home. And what we want to start with that because this is about the farmers here today. And as Chad was just alluding to, my name is Mitch Hora. I'm the founder and CEO here at Continuum Ag. My family farms here in Washington County, Iowa. Chad, maybe a quick intro on you.
Yeah, Chad Scebold, Harrison County, Iowa. Other side of the state, we're seventh generation farm, been around since 1858, but we look at things a bit differently, right? We are the solution. There's a lot of problems in this marketplace, but we'll talk more about why and how. But before we do that, we'll jump into kind of what you can expect on the agenda of what's going to happen today at the Billion Bushel Challenge launch.
Huge.
So really a lot of cool stuff happening. We've got some folks queued up, but before we jump into the folks and the panelists, folks, we're going to talk about us real high level.
Yeah.
Right. People know who we are, I think, for the most part, because we're Hawkeye and Cyclones fans, right? Number one. No. But we'll jump into our introductions and then really dig into some meat and bones with our guests and talk about why they are a founder and a part of the Billion Bushel Challenge. And then we'll jump heavy into the visibility, control, and rewards, kind of why we're all here today to talk about how topsoil tool can actually provide value, the CI calculator tool, what we can do as far as a group, right?
Yeah. So real quick, we already hit on ourselves. We're doing this because it is that long-term legacy that we've got to be tying into. We've got to be working on building soil health, but doing it profitably. And now telling our story is more important than ever. We're launching the Billion Bushel Challenge to really exacerbate that. Like, we got to blow this thing up. So I started Continuum Ag in 2015, trying to help family farms like mine, trying to bring data to the table, trying to make better agronomic decisions, tied together soil health and regenerative ag with precision ag. And now we've continued to just keep expanding all the way to the point where we're at today, saying, hey, we got to really ramp this up and we got to go to big scale.
I seen a little blob on the screen. There was some red. I
Nice,
don't know what that was, but
got all these ideas from Ames, Iowa, Iowa State, the Harvard of the Midwest. Yeah.
No comment. 9-2. That's all I'm going to say. 9-2. Hey, Western Iowa on the other side of the state again. We do things a little bit different than you, but I think this is the other thing. When we look at our practice, some of the things that we do are maybe different, but it's not that they're bad, right?
Yeah.
I think, how do we actually collaborate and find out what that looks like? And that's been where I've lived, I guess, most of my career is, having technology services, a lot of things. How do you cut through the weeds and know what's in the marketplace that's going to provide value? So I look at that from a farmer's eyes, and I have a ton of passion to be in that world.
Yeah.
Let's talk about who we have here today.
Yeah. Let's dig into it. So I already kind of talked about Continuum Ag, started as an agronomy consulting company, focused on the Haney soil health test. We launched a software in 2020. It's called Topsoil. It gets farmers being able to map out soil health, be able to document holistic regenerative ag systems. But now all this data that we've been collecting,
that's right.
Everyone's been talking about, like, hey, how do we actually create value from all this data? All of our farms have years and years of data. Now, for the first time, we can directly monetize that by defining our carbon intensity score. So that's really where we fit in.
That's right. Visibility, right? So that's the first thing. If you remember nothing else, we'll talk about visibility first. So kind of our mission, I'm going to talk about it just because I know you've been around this a long time. This is the 8th year that this company's been around, but this is nothing that's changed along the way, which I think is pretty powerful and speaks a lot to the way you built the company, is helping producers profit from soil health, right? I think if you look at that opportunity, it's never going to change, right? It's just how we take advantage of that as producers and how we incorporate that into our farms.
We still have to keep building soil health.
Absolutely.
As farmers, like, that soil is the most valuable asset that we've got. We've got to continue to build that up. And again, hey, now we can tap into additional dollars for it, but put a number on it. We got to be able to tell our story here. So, launching Billion Bushel Challenge.
Billion Bushel Challenge.
Tee up what we got.
I'm telling you what, this is I think we said one of the most exciting things in, if not the country, probably at least this month. How's that?
Hopefully, yeah.
Visibility.
This week.
We turned it back a little bit.
There we go.
Visibility to the value, right? I think, again, we talk about how do we provide transparency in the marketplace. The things that we're doing today as producers, we're doing a lot of really good things. So how do we actually showcase that, right? And then the next piece of that is, once we know the value, talk about control, right? We, as the producers, controlling the narrative means a lot more than somebody telling us what we have to do. Now, there's a ton of collaboration that has to happen in this marketplace. We know that, but we want to get credit for the things that we do. We control the risk, we control the production, we do a lot of the good things today in the marketplace. Now, number 3, right? Where's that reward?
That's right.
Right. So that marketplace, Mitch, is crazy, right?
Huge.
Low intense, low CI grain.
Yeah, we're going to dig into a lot of the details with all that. We just want to kind of tee up what the heck is the Billion Bushel Challenge. And really, we're talking about getting those carbon intensity scores.
That's right.
So we have some visibility. We're trying to launch this as a nice, really kicking off point, because it can't just be those of us on this webinar today. We got a nice crowd, but we got to have volume. We got 15 billion bushels of corn growing in just the US every year. And all these bushels eventually are going to need to have a carbon intensity score, or else they're going to be given one. And that's back to the control.
Right.
Today, the US Department of Energy is who's kind of controlling the narrative.
That's right.
Controlling the score. And we're saying, hey, we're doing better, man. Like, we're actually doing well. The combination of precision agriculture, technology, regenerative systems, but all that data, it costs money.
That's right.
Pulled together. It brings value in terms of tax credits. We're going to talk about the details of that. And farmers are in core position to reap some rewards.
You just said it, right? You said a lot there, but
that's right.
What it all boils down to is farmers are the solution, right?
Yeah.
As of all the issues that are in the marketplace, we as producers can take control of that and roll. I think if you look at some of the panels that we have on the line, literally going to join us here in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Actually, right now. So farmers being the solutions. I think we talk about it. You talk about it more than I do in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But if you're out in the marketplace, how do we engage, teach, and inspire?
Yeah, and it's about telling that story. It's about collaborating. I want to hit on one last thing here.
Sure.
That at the very beginning, to see this up, this is not farmers versus the world.
That's right.
This is not farmers versus biofuel, farmer versus grain aggregators. The only way that this is going to be successful is if we do it together. I want to really make sure that we drive that home right off the bat. We're not going to see a dime if we don't play in the supply chain. We're not, and they're not going to be able to maximize the opportunity without our data.
That's right.
We have to be able to come together, and coming together and being on top of this stuff brings up our key guests. So Trey Hill. When you think of like some of these carbon programs, like some of these guys we got on here, Trey Hill, Garrett, like one of the first guys.
The marketplaces there's a lot of stuff, right? And Trey, thanks for joining us today. I think what I want to talk to you about today, Trey, you're out in Maryland, beautiful countryside. I'm sure the snow's rolling, or maybe a little rain, moisture, right?
Probably not snow quite yet.
Well, what we want to talk about, Trey, is like how to stay informed, staying ahead of these kind of things. Being a founder of the Billion Bushel Challenge, we're excited to have you aboard. But when you talk about the marketplace that you're in, it is unique like no other, right? On the Chesapeake, working in that marketplace. How do we navigate that market? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, our market's very challenging. I mean, we've got a lot of environmentalists, and we've always been very mindful of that. You know, so we have a lot of social pressures. So we've been no-tilling, we've been cover cropping, and we've been kind of focused on soil health and trying to figure out how to monetize that. You know, every challenge is an opportunity. So the challenge has been to incorporate all these things to try and do better as a farmer. The opportunity is how do we monetize it? How do we make it more profitable instead of viewing it as a burden of less profit? How do we view it as an opportunity to be more profitable? So I've done carbon credits. I work in the regenerative space, not like Rick in the organic space, but trying to figure that market out. And I think this is just a really good opportunity to have a numerical value that differentiates a commodity within a commodity space. The
Talking chicken and the egg, right, Trey?
chicken and the egg. I mean, all of my corn goes to chicken feed. So, it's a matter of figuring out, is there a value to the chicken end user if we can do that low carbon, if we can get that low carbon, if we can get that carbon intensity score right, maybe my corn is worth a little more, which is mainly what I'm looking at. That gives me an advantage. That makes me more financially viable. So that's why I'm tickled to be part of it. I think it's great. I'm excited that you're including the East Coast. Sometimes we get forgotten by the I states. So no, I think it's all good. Really excited to be here.
And sure, that's why we wanted to start with Trey here too, that, hey, we're talking a lot about biofuels here, and farmers that are tying into biofuels have a unique position here because there's tax credits that are going to pay for this. But Trey, before we let you go, again, this isn't, necessarily within the poultry market, but are you hearing them starting to ask you questions about data or trying to figure some stuff out? Maybe take us home with some vision that you see for opportunities for you to be able to tell your story better.
Yeah, I think everybody is. I mean, I think some of the low-hanging fruit would be in the small grains and cereals, whether it's the barley for malting or 6-row barley or wheat, kind of direct to consumer stuff. So I think there's a lot of talk there. I think in the soybean and corn market, the same thing. And so what I like about this is from the bottom up. It's farmer produced rather than top down. I think it's a lot more practical. It makes it so that we have a voice. It makes it so that we have some say in what we're doing and how we're doing it and how we're going to market it. So I think all those things are what's very appealing to me.
Absolutely. Led by farmers for farmers. Trey, I'm going to talk a little bit more. You got one of your colleagues out east with you I want to talk to, but Trey, thanks for joining us today and being part of the Billion Bushel Challenge.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the invitation.
So speaking about relationships and collaboration, right?
The key.
We just talked to Trey. Trey and Mike Twining works really well together. They're out there in the same marketplace. They have a lot of the same things that they deal with in the marketplace. When you look at creative leadership, how do you actually go out and inspire a marketplace? This is the guy. Mr. Mike, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being a part of the Billion Bushel Challenge.
Well, thanks for inviting me to join you guys.
Absolutely.
Mike, you guys have been, bringing new initiatives to the farmers and relationships with. And at Continuum Ag, I started the company as an agronomist, as a crop consultant. I understand the value that those relationships bring to the table. Where do you see that value for your operation or, in the ag retail and the agronomy space, bringing new initiatives to the table?
Well, we're really honored to be able to work with growers like Trey. And it is a unique marketplace that we're in out here where we've probably felt the pressure literally maybe decades earlier than other regions of the U.S. And to build on what Trey said, every challenge is an opportunity, but the real name of the game, I often get asked to come in and explain to folks who are trying to implement environmental practices, what do we got to do to get farmers to engage more and to participate more? And I have to kind of educate these people like, look, farmers grow commodities by and large. That's a game of least cost production. So if you want them to do something that perhaps puts them out of that least cost model, guess what you got to do? You got to pay them. And and through that process, when you collaborate and engage with folks, you learn. A rising tide raises all ships. So it's really, I like the concept of the Billion Bushel Challenge. It's about learning together. It's about how do we get credit for things that we're doing in a way that's meaningful. The other thing that's really interesting about the carbon intensity score that I think is oftentimes in the space of carbon or the environment or whatever, we get into these deep conversations about practices, but we don't talk about outcomes.
Yeah.
And rewarding producers for outcomes, not tying their hands with practices, letting them be the captain of their ships. That's really what I get excited about when I think about the carbon intensity.
I think that's so spot on, Mike. And that's what I've been looking at from this space too. I've been involved in the carbon space for a while. Maybe not as long as Trey, not as long as our next guest that we're going to have on here too, Kelly, but I've already been doing these practices for a while. These carbon programs, like, they don't work for every producer. And now we're talking about putting a score on it, working with the trusted relationships that you already have, working with the data you already have. putting the farmers and their agronomists in position to really work together, utilize that relationship, utilize that data, and go and tell that story. Mike, appreciate having you on, but Kelly here knows about telling a story, knows about being able to connect. Kelly, you've been in the carbon space for a while here, but maybe talk a little bit on telling the story and where do you see carbon intensity tying in to tell your story?
I've been involved in the carbon market since 2020. December 1st was when Shopify bought my first credits. And I've said for a long time that the space is like the wild, wild west. And I'm excited about the CI score and the metric that's coming because now we'll be able to measure it. My message is very much mirror what Trey and Mike are saying. You know, we're paying for practices. We're finally looking at outcomes, and we are hopefully my corn's worth a little bit more. But we've been, you know, here because of erosion in these hills. You know, I don't farm too far from Chad. The erosion in these hills, we've been no-till and cover crops for a long time. We've been no-till my whole life, and so we're using these practices for agronomic reasons. And now, like Trey said, hopefully my corn's worth just a little bit more.
Yeah, you know, Kelly, I tell you what, Mitchell says I can't talk to you. He's like, you guys farm too close to each other. You guys are in cohorts on that side of the state to take over the nation, right? But I will tell you, it's been fun to watch some of the things that you and your group do. But I think it is about networking, right? You guys do a really good job. That we as producers are going to be vital to the success of how we actually, you know, Mike talked about it, but like control, so sure, but then the rewards, right? So I think the networking that you heard before, maybe talk a little bit how networking changes the game as well.
You know, that's what Xtreme Ag is all about. Farmers, as neighbors, it seems to be viewed as competition, and everything is held very private. And with Xtreme Ag, it's just a peer group that we share everything, and we all learn together. You know, my good friend Temple is out there close to Trey, and I talk to Temple probably 5 times a week, and I've learned a lot from Temple on what they do on cover crops, and I bring it back here. Talking to Chad in Alabama or Matt in Arkansas, the sharing that we do from across the country is amazing. Learned about desiccating soybeans for Matt Miles in southern Arkansas. It's been a real game changer here for us in Iowa, and the network piece of it has progressed our operation a long ways.
And I'm going to talk just real quick because, again, I know Kelly and I could talk all day, right?
Yeah.
But maybe talk a little bit about biofuel and the credits because it's specifically right where he's at.
I want to hit on like the networking piece here, that the only way that we're really going to be successful with this is if we move a volume of grain in a low CI direction. Okay. So we're going to get into the details, but more than 40% of the corn grown in the US goes into biofuel. In order to lower the carbon intensity of that massive volume, we can't just have a couple farmers that are aware of this thing. That's why we're launching the Billion Bushel Challenge. We don't know all the rules yet. These programs are not live. Like, you're not going to be able to go and just monetize your carbon intensity today. You might be able to small scale into pilots, but this still has got the dust to settle here a little bit. We're doing this now because we got to have the network.
That's right.
We got to be able to rally the troops here. We got to be able to show the U.S. Department of Energy and our biofuel partners that, hey, farmers are ready. Farmers have the data. We've got a story to tell. We're ready to rock and roll here, and we're going to get those first bushels scored. Kelly, awesome to have you in, pumped. And I don't know if Kelly's going to share his score. I figured he was going to brag.
You didn't even bring it up. Kelly knows his score here, and I thought maybe you'd poke a little bit. Maybe. What do you think about that? What's your score at, Kelly?
My score is a negative 5.2. And the thing I'm most proud of is that it's better than Mitchell's.
That's amazing.
My score this year was negative 4.1. We'll be gunning for you, Kelly. We'll see. This is what this is all about. That's right. A little fun.
Absolutely.
I love it. And all right. So thanks, Kelly. One of the guys speaking of networking, guys has been in part of the Continuum Ag network really for a long time is my buddy Rick Clark. And Rick farms out in Indiana. Large scale regenerative organic. And Rick, wanted to have you in on this, that, you know, you've been watching this for a while. Maybe, you know, what do you see, you know, that you and I have been working on stuff here back and forth for a while. So maybe start with what makes you excited about this carbon intensity thing?
Yeah, well, what I'll tell you what really makes me excited the most right now is the fact that we've not been able to participate in anything because of a term called additionality. So what's so frustrating about that is a lot of these people who have been on the edge of this for a long time can't seem to play ball And you have now created a mechanism that is going to work for anybody and everybody. And that's what's important here. And, you know, a lot of people may ask, why do you have me on here? Excuse me. Why do you have me on here today? I don't feed any corn into any biofuels, but that's okay. It's all about building for the future. And when I look at farming by following the principles of soil health, this is exactly the way you have to farm to get your CI score. So all of this stuff works together. I may not have a market for it today, but we will get a score generated. We will get all the systems in place, all of the data uploaded, so that when that day does come, there's maybe a grazing, maybe there's some benefit to grazing, and we'll get paid for that. Maybe there will be end users that are going to want regenerative organic grain that has a CI score. So all this is just building for the future.
That's why I'm so bullish on this.
Yeah.
This is setting a precedent here. A scoring system, a business model. I am bullish that this is going to be everything. It's going to be not just biofuels, not just corn, soybean, milo, and rice like we can score today, but it's going to be all of it. Telling that story, connected to the supply chain. Like, hey, guys like Rick, not going to be able to monetize here today because he's not playing within the biofuel marketplace, at least via the tax credits.
That's right.
But Rick, you're already sharing a lot of data. Do you see this carbon intensity thing kind of being something that the organic space might be looking at here as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think it will be eventually. And like I said, I mean, this is all about what we all want to do. We want to save the soil. We want to build human health, build soil health, and to make your CI score better for you and your farm, you have to implement those regenerative practices. So this is an absolute win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's why I love it. And Rick, thanks for hopping on here with us. We got a lot to keep getting to.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank
One
you.
of the things, building on with what Rick just talked about is a constant improving system.
Yeah.
Right. When we look at the evolution of how we did something yesterday versus what we're doing today, we're doing a ton of good things as producers. How do we get that reward? Right. We talked about visibility, control, and rewards, but I think it's time to talk a little bit more about the Billion Bushel Challenge and exactly what the CI
That's
score
right.
role
A
is.
key thing of that, to Rick's point here, though, too, to transition is to maximize the dollars here. Yeah, we're talking about adding cover crops, reducing tillage, maybe using manure, some of these practices like the guys that were just on, they're all doing these things to varying degrees. Now, you don't have to go that far, though. That's what I love about this, too. Right. Just quantifying your baseline score as you are today. Maybe you're not using cover crops. Maybe you're not using no-till. Maybe you're using fairly conventional practices. It still starts with visibility, getting that score. Because guess what? Our data, our crop has a score on it, whether we like it or not.
There's no shame, right? So like I'll show my score. Yeah. I'm just around a 16.2 and you're at negative, right?
-4.
I've got to do things a little bit better. And again, when you start talking about the folks that are in the marketplace, at least we're not getting the Department of Energy's number that they're giving us, right?
Yeah. So here's the real meat and potatoes of all this. Okay. So this is being prompted because of the Section 45Z tax credit. This was part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And we have a lot of material here. We're going to go fast. Okay.
Yeah, right.
This is all recorded. All the slides are going to be made available. Section 45Z is a tax credit for transportation biofuel manufacturers, not a tax credit for farmers. Okay.
That's right.
We got to clarify that. Biofuel manufacturers can earn the tax credits. Right now, the U.S. Department of Energy is who controls the number and the narrative through the GREET model. And today it says that the corn, for ethanol, for the example, the corn contributes more than half of the carbon footprint or the carbon intensity of a gallon of ethanol. However, now these companies can start tapping into these tax credits starting in 2025, which means the crop that we're growing in 2024, and we're doing practices that influence right now. That's why we're doing this. The crop ties into the gallons carbon intensity, and the lower that carbon intensity, the more dollars that can be coming in. But in order to do it, we got to collaborate.
That's it, right? So there is not a hero and a villain. As much as Kelly and the guys want to think they're these heroes, right? We do have a lot of opportunities to take control, right? And we are doing those right things in the marketplace, but it is about collaboration.
Yeah.
And so some of the purse strings that are tied to these credits, how do we take advantage of that last part, right, of the rewards? We got to showcase proactively what we're doing in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And those buyers downstream, we just have to make sure that we're attaching our data to our production.
That's right. We're saying, hey, the farmers are ready to lead this thing. We don't have the rules yet from the IRS. Okay, full transparency. We don't know exactly how this is going to play out. We don't know exactly how the math is going to work. We got a pretty good idea. We don't know exactly. I'm dialing it.
That's right. That's right.
So we know what the law says here today, but in order to be able to get this to go, it is that chicken and egg thing, like you and Trey were talking. We got to have enough data to say we're better than the U.S. Department of Energy baseline number, which their number is 29.1. We kind of
right.
brush by it, but they give us a number and it's county by county. Farmers need to have their number so we can say, hey, we got enough volume of low carbon grain. We can produce low carbon fuel and together be able to tap into some real dollars here. But
Yeah.
it takes collaboration.
It is. It does. And I think you hit it home, right? It is one of those things when you talk about the industry players, there are people that are watching and seeing what's going to happen in the marketplace. We could certainly wait to be told what to do as producers, or we take advantage of this and take initiative and actually be a part of the Billion Bushel Challenge and start scoring some bushels.
Okay, so that's what prompted this. Walk through the numbers.
Yeah. So again, Mitch, you talked about 40% of the U.S. Crop that was produced last year, over 15 billion bushels. Over 40% of that's going to go into ethanol production.
Yep.
Every one of those 40%, so 6 billion bushels, will have to have a CI score in 25.
Yeah.
So our voice, if we do not get our own score proactively, we will be given that 29.1. Like I said, we've been doing a ton of things in the marketplace that is positive. You talked about Rick talking about additionalities and all. It doesn't matter anymore. If you're doing those things, you get credit for doing those things.
That's what I love about it. So today, the U.S. Department of Energy says that ethanol has a score of 55.5. They have to lower that score, and farmers are a major contributor. The key is just defining what is the carbon intensity of your bushel, of each individual field. Like we got the opportunity to really document this stuff, utilize our data, put a number on it, and be able to monetize that.
I thought this was a party. We're getting into the weeds here.
We are getting into
But I
weeds.
do
There's a
wanna
bunch of
talk-
that on YouTube. A lot of details on our YouTube.
Well, really high level here, right? So Kelly and I went through a lot of different stuff there too early, but carbon intensity is the amount of energy that goes into the production of 1 bushel of grain, right?
Yeah.
So super simple if you break it all down.
Yeah.
This tax credit's good for 3 years, starts in 25, goes through 27. Now's the time to take advantage of it. Our boy,
Yeah.
Tommy V,
Yeah.
Tommy
Love
V,
it.
I
Love
think couldn't be here with us today, but there's some things that we hear in the marketplace where if we do not take advantage of what's happening in the marketplace today, we will have a different story to tell.
It's a great carrot opportunity. Tens of billions of dollars worth of carrot.
That's right.
It's like, man, we gotta get her going here though. We gotta get her going. So also again, we're gonna run through a lot of different stuff. There is a Q&A deal open. We're gonna have some time kind of at the end. And again, everything's recorded. We're gonna have a lot of additional webinars here. So you already kind of talked about carbon intensity here, but it's at the lowest score wins. Lower is better.
That's right.
So today they say we're plus 29. That means losing carbon at a rate of plus 29. So if you're 0, that means you're like carbon neutral, essentially.
Yep.
If you're negative, like me and my buddy Kelly,
That's right.
that means as a result of our production, we're actually putting more carbon in the ground than what we're releasing. And
Super attractive, right? The lower we are, so it's not like my Hawkeyes. You don't want to have those low scores, right? But at the end of the day, that score, we win, right?
Yeah.
And again, that is super attractive to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Every point you're below that number that you're talking about, Mitch, every number you're below that 29.1 is worth 5.4 cents.
Yeah.
In terms of the tax credit.
that's what it looks like. Every single facility will be a little bit different. We use the 5.4 cents because it's a nice conservative number. There's a lot of red tape. Farmers
Sure.
don't necessarily worry about it. Just know that every single point that you are below basically your county benchmark, the lower you are, the more dollars that you're going to be able to earn, because the more value you bring to the biofuel player. And again, this is about collaboration. The lower the bushels that we've got going in, the more tax credits, the more dollars that can be dispersed.
That's right. I'll be brief on this. You've heard me say it a few
We
times.
said it. We're gonna
Visibility, control, and reward. That's what it's about. But we are doing the right things. It's time for us to be able to unite and actually come together and say, hey,
Yeah.
Now what about that reward? Let's
Yeah.
figure that thing out.
That's right. What happened here?
I think this is where my Hawkeye slide was supposed to come.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
good thing we got that. I didn't know you were sneaking that in.
You know how it is.
So the opportunity here to start with the visibility. Okay, hey, we need to have some numbers on this. There's a lot of pilot programs going on right now. You might be able to earn some dollars actually on your 2023 crop. Like, hey, game on, let's roll. It's gonna be small, small numbers. These
Sure.
tax credits don't start until 2025. the IRS is still working on some of the final rules.
Not till
So-
25. Why should we do anything right now?
Because the crop
Yeah.
grown in 24 goes into that. We've got to be looking at this today. And that's why we're saying, hey, we don't want to wait. We are working within the biofuel industry as well. Okay. So we've had a lot of conversations with the biofuel folks. Continuum Ag is a member of the Renewable Fuels Association and other biofuel trade organizations. They know that this is going on. I hope a lot of them are on, and hope that you're excited for this here. This is about, again, collaboration. The only way anyone's going to win is if we're able to show, here's our numbers, here's our data coming from the farm, utilize this, and let's share
That's
about
right.
it together.
So the numbers that you're seeing up here on the screen and the things we've been talking about is, again, visibility. It will change based off your CI score. It'll change based off of the demand, who's taking that in-house, who the buyers are.
Yeah.
That's going to move. But again, what we want to make sure that we know as a part of the Billion Bushel Challenge, it's all about finding and knowing that score. That is, again, we're not going to wait for others to tell us what to do. We're going to be proactive in the marketplace and say, hey, here's where our score is.
That you can start on now. Topsoil.ag, we're going to get into some of the details, but it's just get your baseline score. This is not a big lift. It takes less than 10 minutes and be able to get that score. That's step number one, visibility.
Absolutely.
What's my score compared to the baseline? That's what we're talking about today. Then as this continues to progress, now you can get into an opportunity to actually monetize it, which takes third-party verification, takes data documentation, field by field. There's some more work there, but we got some time
That's right.
because this starts about a year from now. But that's why we're having the conversation today.
Still time to get a cover crop in.
Still time. Yeah, get your couple crops out there. So this is what it looks like.
That's right. So if you look again at some of the different ways that this thing changes, if I incorporate a cover crop, my score goes down. And it's again, you don't have to necessarily do these things. You're probably doing a lot of these things in the market. Again, fully optimized with nutrients. I'm a no-till guy. I'm doing all these things the right way. It talks about the number of the units of energy that gets consumed for every time you're going across the field.
Yep.
My drone guys that are actually making an application, be a drone versus diesel tractors running across the
Yeah,
field,
it helps.
it lowers that score. All those things are dynamic, right? They are going to change. The cool thing is on topsoil.ag, you can go get that score and then actually adjust back and forth with a calculator to see all the cool things.
That's our secret sauce here. A couple of things. One, we're farmers. We're doing this on our own. Like we're doing this in a farmer to farmer angle. As far as with Continuum Ag and the software, like I wanted to know my score.
That's right.
And now I finally like got the tools and stuff to be able to do it. Is the tool perfect? No, not by any means. And actually there was a new update to the Greek model that we just got our hands on today.
That's right.
So it's continuing to get better, telling our story, being able to have a more accurate number, but we show you what your score is. And then we're an agronomic company. We show you how you're going to improve your score, toggle those practices, tap into your existing agronomic network, and we're here to help you out and really optimize that score. So yeah, Chad,
Absolutely.
I think this one is actually from yours, isn't it? That
It
you're
is,
saying like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
here's my score today, 16. If I change some practices, could be
Look at
right there with our
that.
buddy Kelly.
Now I'm taking Kelly out, right? I may have put cover crop in. I think you've seen that tractor's rolling.
That's right. Hey, last kind of thing on this. This is where everything essentially goes into your score. Okay, so we're talking fertilizer, fuel usage, energy usage, the rest of the fertility P&K, pesticides, the manure, tillage, cover crop. Like it's kind
Sounds
of
like a lot. How long does it take to get a
takes
CI?
less than 10 minutes. So we've really simplified it. The actual Department of Energy tool is kind of confusing. It's really clunky. It's not great, but we've really simplified things, make it easy. And then you get a little
reward. You don't remember seeing these at Iowa State.
These
but
are cool.
These are certificates, right?
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
the end of the day, after going through that 10, I've seen 12, 15 minutes max, depending on how many questions or practices they're putting across that field. Super simple. Once you actually submit, you'll get that certificate. Now it's time to find a buyer, right?
That's right.
So now we have the visibility. We know what our score is. Now it's actually going to the marketplace and saying, look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Aggregating those bushels, going to buyers and saying, hey, are you interested? Let's talk about a strategy to go out and look for the
The
contract.
key with this certificate here, it's just being able to have the conversation, okay, to really monetize, likely going to need to be verified, or just working with that company individually. And it might not necessarily even be utilizing our stuff. They might have their own thing, and you say, hey, I got this carbon intensity score. I know I got some great data. I got a story to be told. We just want to help you to have that conversation. If this is gonna be successful,
Sure.
we're gonna have a lot of folks talking about carbon intensity outcomes, and that's gonna lead to other things, water quality outcomes and the like. So
Four-legged friends that are out in the marketplace as well.
yeah, tying into
It is
those
not
other
another
markets.
carbon program. Sometimes we hear,
That's right.
Mitch, there's a lot of different things that, it's a four-letter word at times, right?
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this is not another carbon program. It's aimed for visibility, put farmers in control.
No
We
contracts.
Are dialed in as an independent. They can
Yeah.
help you find out that value.
No contracts. It's tied to the bushel. Okay, so if you get your score and have it verified, that data goes with the bushel, and when you sell that bushel,
That's
you can
right.
sell the data with it. Hopefully at an okay premium, because we're sharing in the value together. And but when that data goes, it's gone, and there you go. Now it's part of the next person's reporting. It's a scope 3 initiative, is what it's
That's right.
called. It's part
What
of
I love about Mitch, farmers own their data.
farmers own the data.
It's not something where it goes off into oblivion and
Yeah.
now it's where.
That's the key. That's why we built our own software too. You own the data. You're in control with Topsoil.ag. We're gonna have a little fun here too.
Absolutely. So we talk, I've probably brought up too many times my team and my affiliations, but this is the cool part of it. Now all of a sudden we have the ability to say, hey, what are you doing by state? We've got the teams that are going to be in the marketplace. You've seen a few of the founders that are going to have teams in the marketplace. I think you're going to see this healthy jab, little friendly competition where Team Iowa versus Team Nebraska, just like over Turkey Day, right?
Yeah.
Who's winning what where. I think those are the things that are fun and inspires collaboration, a little bit of a hey, we're
Yeah.
better than you kind of thing.
But-
Hey, I will tell you, Trey and Mike said they're calling folks out. They say we're gonna have the lowest CI corn in the nation.
Ooh, ooh. And that's what this is about, like being able to kind of have some fun with this. We don't know what we're going to do yet. We're open for ideas and collaboration back, because we can't directly go and like these tax credits are there right now. It's a chicken and the egg. Once again, we've said it. We've got to get farmers with visibility, awareness that this is available, awareness that, hey, here's an easy way to get your score, awareness that, hey, this score is worth some money, but having a little fun and being able to cross collaborate and kind of say, hey, from the farmers up, we're going to lead the charge here. We're not going to wait for the Department of Energy. We're not going to wait for the IRS. And guess what? We might say I'm wrong. My wife says I'm wrong. But hey, guess what? If you're not in a biofuel marketplace, kind of like Rick and Trey that were on here,
Yeah.
I bet you there's going to be some other markets that are going to open up wanting to know how that low carbon crop could tie in to their initiative. Again, those companies say it's the pork guys, say it's the financial industry or the dairy guys. That dairy already said they're gonna be carbon neutral by 2050. Like, hey, of a dairy cow, 40% of the carbon footprint of a dairy cow comes from the grain.
That's
Isn't that crazy?
what better way to school
For
that,
the
right?
pork side of things, 65% of the carbon footprint of a bushel of pork, 65% of the carbon footprint of a pig comes from the feed.
Yeah,
We can lower that carbon intensity with these initiatives.
huge.
That's why I'm so bullish on this. So excited to have a little bit of friendly competition here. It should be fun. So get on Topsoil.ag. Each of your teams will have a discount code when you go to checkout. And so you'll be able to get with your team, have a little bit of competition that way, but complete your farm profile. Then when you go to checkout, plug in your discount code. There'll be a lot of material going out about those teams here as we go. It's gonna be a little fun.
Competition. Speaking of competition,
Oh,
We're
my
here, boys.
goodness.
We're here to party.
Where's
Where's the
that?
pong table?
Oh,
What's up, guys? It's the party.
Hey,
I thought this was like a competitive.
what's going on, fellas?
I heard
Not much.
intensity. I thought it was like gonna
Come
be
on
a
here.
pepper
a
tournament.
little rave, a little
Yeah.
dance.
You didn't even have any good bourbon. I had to bring my own mixer.
You have to bring your own mixers in? Yeah, well, we're just getting the party started here, fellas.
Let's get it.
Tork and Sawyer Whisler from This'll Do Farm. Some of my neighbors here were like, well, hey, why don't you boys come on in?
Makes
We're having a
sense.
little bit of fun here, but what do you guys are hearing about this carbon intensity thing. You guys are telling your story. How do you think this is going to tie in and help you guys with the effort that you've already got?
Well, I think it's kind of what you were saying before when we were just kind of listening. I think this is going to tie into other industries. I think it's going to tie into food. I think it's going to tie into the financial space.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about carbon. It's the hot thing. Everybody wants to be carbon neutral. And we are one of the few industries in the world that I feel like can take advantage of sequestering carbon. So
That's
I
right.
just feel like it's the future and I want to be a part of it.
That's absolutely right. Today, food and ag is about 10% of the global carbon, 24% of the global carbon footprint. Agriculture alone is about 10% of the US carbon footprint. But yeah, we can actually go carbon negative. How do you think that, like within the pork side, that
Pork,
data
that's-
connectivity, like that's
Oh,
you guys
that's-
MO?
You guys are doing a lot of the right things today.
Yeah.
Right. We don't do a good job of telling our story. CI makes it easier, right? So if we look at that, now we can do a little competition like Team Hog Boys versus what? You guys calling some people out or what?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of people that are kind of foo-foo on this right now. And there's a lot of guys out there like us. I don't sell any grain into biofuels.
Yep.
But I think where people are missing the how can I phrase that? This is just the beginning, and the same thought process that is running through this biofuels, you're going to get it in the food business. And all it's going to take is somebody like just Smithfield.
Yeah.
They're going to make the connection that these promises they've made on being carbon neutral, it goes all the way back to the feed that goes to that pig.
That's right.
And so getting your carbon intensity figured out now, and we're doing, national pork producers doing the same thing.
Yep.
They want to get every farm. We're doing a sustainability study,
Yeah.
but it's basically the same thing.
Same
It's
deal.
carbon intensity.
That's right.
And
we're looking at being able to tie that in. What at Continuum Ag, we only quantify the carbon intensity of the bushel.
yeah,
It's a whole nother deal to be able to quantify the carbon intensity of the barn
Mhm.
or to the packing plant. Like in the livestock industry, there's multiple steps here, but a huge piece, currently 65% of the carbon footprint of your operation, of a pork operation, 65% comes from the grain.
right.
And that's what we're talking about. Hey, it's a big chunk. It's a big chunk for biofuel, big chunk for the animal industry. Hey, let's start there. We've got a way to quantify it. We've got ways to decrease it. There's not necessarily dollars you guys can tap into right now, but to your point, Tork, we got to start with a number. If we're going to get anything, we got to be able to tell our story.
Speaking of numbers, I thought you guys were gonna bring some adult beverages in with you.
I'm really thirsty.
I brought one for me. I just sniff it out.
We got to get the rest of our hospitality crew going around here.
That's right, that's right.
Speaking, thank you, Diana. Well, hey everyone, thanks for hopping on here today. I think we actually cranked through it fairly fast. That only, what was that, like 15 minutes or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think 17. Yeah,
I think it's pretty good.
Dialed in actually.
So we'll hang out, continue to take some questions. I know that there are some fellas. Thanks for coming and joining us in person too.
You're
We'll
welcome.
order a couple
Yeah.
cocktails.
Cheers.
for a
What do
while.
we- what's the toast?
Cheers, guys.
See
Hey,
y'all.
cheers
Thanks
to
for
the
coming in.
Billion Bushel Challenge.
Billion
Yeah,
Bushel
let's
Challenge.
go.
Bushel
There
Challenge.
you go.
For more information, hit up our website, continuum.ag/billion bushel challenge. Go straight to topsoil.ag. There's gonna be a ton of material going about this over the coming months. And Chad and I are hosting a CI chit chat every Tuesday morning, 7:45 to 8:15 for all the questions they've got. We know that I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions about this too. I continue to have questions. We don't have this all figured out yet. We're going to keep putting material out there as much as we possibly can. Here's some resources. But Diana, we got any initial questions here, or else we'll call it a day?
Yeah, only here in corn here. This is also available for soybean, renewable diesel, and SAF, sustainable aviation fuel.
I appreciate that. And it's a really key thing.
Absolutely.
I try to simplify this a lot into like the ethanol bucket because it's easier for my simple mind to think about that one thing. Okay. I get a little too ADHD and think about a lot of different
It
stuff.
happens.
But anyway, so this is for all these different fuels though. We're talking ethanol, renewable diesel, biodiesel, and sustainable aviation fuel, the new hot thing. I was out in DC last week and the whole deal was about sustainable aviation fuel. All of these transportation biofuels can earn these 45Z tax credits. And grain ties into that. The crops that we can score today that are eligible within the challenge is corn, soybeans, sorghum, and rice. We can score those today from the GREET model. Canola will be coming, and other crops will be coming, and yeah, it'll tie into other groups that are working on the next piece of the
How about
chain.
DDGs, right?
But
Now, all of a sudden,
the
we've got something
DDG
coming off
piece-
some of those ethanol facilities, even on the
Yep.
soy crushers.
That's
Maybe
right,
we've got
the
the
soy
ability to
crushers.
actually have low carbon DDGs, like down the line, like we were talking about.
It all ties together. So it's a great point. It's not just ethanol and not just corn. That's our focus. That's where like the majority of the opportunity really is. On soybeans, you can do the same thing. We have all the soybean scoring built into topsoil as well. It just in some of the conversions, the nitty gritty, I don't want to go in the weeds. The math isn't quite as exciting on a per acre basis, but it's still significant ROI. So absolutely. We've got our CI scores on soybeans too.
And I think in effort to kind of save some time here we do have these questions kind of queued up that we're going to
Yeah.
follow up with a nice little kind of a summary or a little package to be able to showcase some of these. They've come in pretty hot and heavy. I think for us to be able to showcase probably in the next 24 hours, Diana, we'll get those out there, but we will answer all those questions. If
We
you
have
want
another
to join a team,
hot one or two or no?
It's up
Do we have a
it's up to you.
burning question
Tork's
now?
sitting here ready for another adult beverage,
Yeah.
here, so like,
All right, here's one.
last one.
Some ethanol plants in Iowa have said they anticipate carbon pipelines to take care of their CI scores and don't expect pay premium on grain. How realistic is that?
So, excellent question. My response, why don't we do both? You can stack the two. Ethanol today has a CI score of about 55. The corn is 29 of those points. If we reduce that, basically cuts the score in half. A CO2 pipeline reduces the CI score by 25 to 30 points. Now we're talking carbon neutral or carbon negative American biofuel. Like that's freaking awesome to me. So the pipelines are still a little ways away. Earliest is going to be 2026. At Continuum Ag, we don't necessarily have a hard stance for or against. Landowners, you got to make your own decisions. Pipeline companies, you got to make your own decisions. It doesn't necessarily directly impact me on my operation, so I don't have an opinion. I just see the opportunity for doing all this stuff together. Like, hey, if we want to be able to decarbonize, be able to tap into some of these dollars, there's multiple levers to be able to do it. I just think one of the key ones that we can start right now today is by working on the farm.
Sure. And the unified voice too.
That's
Like,
right.
we just talked about voice. Like, how do we take control of the narrative? We're not going to be told what the goddamn do, right?
No.
We as producers do not like that. It's not the carrot and the stick. We're going to actually proactively go out and do this. So
That's the
I
thing.
think
Like,
that's
you
the
can
key
choose
piece of it.
what you want to do. Like on your score today, 16.
Sure.
Like, hey, some of these tools, like they're new or they're different. They might not fit in your operation or the weather. You might not be able to get done. Still, your score is good. Like you don't have to have the lowest one.
Sure.
You got to find a balance of what's going to work for your operation and be able to know how to monetize that. Like everyone's going to have a different score here. Everyone's going to be on a different piece of the continuum here, if you will.
I'm looking at this last question here.
Yeah.
Team Little Piggy, is that what?
Oh, I don't think it's team. I think it's supposed to be boss hog.
Team Boss Hog. If you want to be a part of Team Boss Hog, check it out online, billionbushels.com.
Love it.
Thanks for your time today. It's been fun talking with y'all.
We'll see you next time.
See.